just kind of breaks down. And so they're not allowed to touch a dead body. And this man lying on the side of the road very well could be dead. And so to keep themselves according to the law, they have to walk past. Jesus knows that. The expert of the law knows that. Everybody listening knows that. They all know the priest and the Levite are supposed to keep walking because that's the way to honor God. Right? By following his law. Well, the same law that said, love your neighbor, is the law that said the Levites can't touch a dead person. And so the hero in the story is the Samaritan. That is shocking. And everybody around Jesus would have been like, is he going to say Samaritan's a hero? Oh my goodness, what's going on? The second thing that's shocking is that Jesus takes this Old Testament passage and he completely flips it. You see, the Old Testament passage was love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus flips it not to say who's my neighbor, but to say what does it mean to be neighborly? He takes the neighborness and shifts it from something that you look for someone else to be into something that I am being for others. And that should have shocked this guy, because Jesus at the very end says, go and do likewise. Do likewise? Imitate a Samaritan? Be a neighbor? That's not what I asked you, Jesus. So here's something I want you to jot down. Jesus redefines the whole love your neighbor thing into keeping this in mind. Neighbor isn't about who they are to us, but who we are to them. A neighbor isn't a descriptive word about someone else's relationship to me. A neighbor is a descriptive word, according to Jesus, about my relationship to the whole world. My job is to be a neighbor. So he's taken the Old Testament passage and he's completely flipping it. I want to illustrate this. Have you ever been so frustrated with someone that you wish you could just click the mute button on the remote control? You know, you wish you could just like hit the volume down and walk away, change the channel, power off, something like that. Have you ever been so frustrated with someone that you just really wanted to control them for just a couple seconds? I just want to make you shut up. I just want to make you walk away. I just want to make you do so. Have you ever been that frustrated with someone? Well, yeah, I think we've all been that frustrated. I think there was a movie some time ago about Adam Sandler with a remote control, and he was like turning things on and off and rewinding and fast forwarding and stuff like that. And when I saw that movie, I thought, okay, cool, where do I get one? Because that would be easy. You know, have you ever been that frustrated that you wish you just had a remote control to make them do what you would want them to? What would you have them do? I mean, think about this. Find someone in your mind that just bugs you. Your boss, coworker, son, daughter. I don't know, find someone in your mind that just bothers you. And think about this. If I had total control over them for 20 minutes, complete and total remote control over them for 20 minutes, what would I do? What would I do with that power? What would you have them? Well, you know what I would do? I'd probably have them say nice things about me. I'd probably have them, I'd program this little thing so that every 5 minutes they'd just come into my office and say, Dad, you are the best dude ever. Or I would program the little thing so that the person that is like a coworker that I'm irritated with or whatever, that they would come up and they'd just say, whatever you want, I'm just going to do it for you. Or maybe you would program something different, but I think I would make them say nice things about me. I think I would make them bring things to me, like maybe a cup of coffee that's expensive that I didn't buy, they bought. I would have them give me gifts. I would do all these things. And why would we do that? If we had total control over other people, why would we make them do those things for us? It's because we love ourselves. Because I love me, and they should too. And what Jesus is saying when he says love your neighbor as yourself, he says take that as yourself to mean whatever I would do to make you do for me, I'm just going to do for you. I'm not necessarily going to give you the remote control so that you can just tell me what to do and I do it. It's this. It's more intentional. It's more personal. It's more me. It begins with me. The love comes out of me that I say, everything I want you to do to love me, I'm going to do for you first. That's tough. Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. If I'm lying in a ditch, I don't care about the law. I want someone to come and pick me up. If I'm lying in a ditch, I don't care if he's a Samaritan or someone that I ordinarily would have prejudice for. I want him to come and pick me up. If I'm lying in a ditch, I want someone to help me out. Therefore, if I see someone in a ditch, that's what it means to be a neighbor. That's what it means to love. I think that this mentality alone can solve just about every one of our problems. I could end the message right here. I've got more stuff to talk about, but I could end it here because this idea alone will solve your marriage problems. Identify everything you want that other person to do for you, and you just do it for them first. This will solve your boss problems. Identify everything you wish the boss would do for you and do it for him first. Identify everything you want your coworkers to do for you and do it for them first. Before long, you become this irritating person who's always doing all this nice stuff to everybody, and everybody feels guilty when they're around you, but they love you. And of course, that's nice because they love you. So the end result is they're going to love you back, but that's not why you did it in the first place. You did it because of Jesus. Because he said, love your neighbor as yourself. When I was in seminary, this is the name for the school that you go to when you want to be a pastor after you graduate from normal college and you're trying to get a master's degree. They call it seminary, which is lame because it's very close to the word cemetery. And so little children always get that messed up, and they think that I graduated from the cemetery, which is awesome, by the way. If you know, one of these days we're all going to graduate from the cemetery. But this is a different kind of thing. So I went to seminary. I was in this class where I had to get a mentor, and I got this pastor to be my mentor. And I'm working with him, and I joined the worship team of that church, and I'm working on the worship team. I'm playing guitar, leading every now and then. And there's this one lady on the worship team who just irritates the snot out of me. And she doesn't like me either. And we have this conflict, and I don't even know what the conflict is. It's just she's got one of those personalities that just bothered me, that I just couldn't stand. And so it was one of these things where when we're passing in the church, it's just like a head nod. We're in the same Sunday school class, and we're cordial with each other. We're not mean to each other. We practice together, and when she makes a mistake, there's this little part of me that just wants to go, Peggy, you made a mistake. And there's this little tension between us. Well, the mentor pastor guy came up to me once, and he said, that's not right, man. You got to fix that. I said, I don't want to do that. But lo and behold, I had this assignment from seminary that I had to do what the mentor asked me to do, and I had to, follow through with some of these growth projects, and become a better person or something. So I said, all right, what am I going to do? And so I talked to a couple people, and here's the strategy. Go over to her house and have a conversation. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to her house. That makes me nervous. She's like 15 years older than me. That's almost creepy. And so I did anyway because the mentor said I should. So I go over there. It's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Her kids are just about ready to come home from school, something along those lines. I go to the kitchen. She makes me like a cup of tea or something. And I sit there and I'm pessimistic and I'm thinking this is going to fail. And what I decide to do is I'm just not interested in controlling this conversation. I'm just going to ask some questions. So I asked a question and she shares a little bit. And I asked another question and she shares a little bit. I ask another question, and she shares some more. And I'm not talking at all. I'm just asking questions now and then and following up. And by the end of about an hour and a half, I know her better. I know where she's coming from. And I don't quite hate her guts so much, but I feel bothered and irritated that I had to go through this process and what's going to come out of this. Well, over the next couple of weeks, her attitude towards me was different. And by the end of that year, we were together for some reason in some worship team context, and I remember her saying that she felt so proud of me because of the way I handled our conflict with each other. And she's telling other people the story of me coming over and just asking questions and listening and getting to know her. And I'm just flabbergasted because the entire time I thought I'm completely, I have no idea what I was doing. And yet the end result was, by just investing a little bit of time in her, the relationship was better. And now she's telling other people that I'm a cool guy. And that's good. That's good. You want people to say that stuff about you. So I loved myself first, loving her. I believe this kind of attitude can solve just about every one of our problems. Friendships, marriages, jobs, people you can't stand. But Jesus doesn't let you stay there on the level of just being nice to people. This is the golden rule, essentially. Do for others what you would have them do for you. That's this right here. This is the golden rule. But Jesus isn't satisfied by leaving it here. See, that's the Old Testament that he's now reinterpreting. He takes the Old Testament passage, which is just for the Israelites, and he spreads it out to the whole world. He says it's not about them being your neighbor, it's about you being their neighbor. So now it's spread out to the whole wide world. But that's not good enough. He gives us command 2.1. Okay, so check this out. It's in John chapter 13. You don't even have to flip there. I printed it on the note sheet. See, I love you. I'm taking care of you. A new command I give you, it says, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you're my disciples, if you love one another. Now, love one another, that's the same command, right? Love your neighbor as yourself, love each other. You know, that's what we talk about. What's the most important thing in the world? Well, love God and then love others, right? So he says love one another, but he calls it a new command. What makes it new? Why is this new? 2 reasons. The first reason is that this one isn't as yourself. This one is as Jesus. See what he says there? As I have loved you, so you love one another. The comparison is no longer what you want them to do for you. This is beyond the golden rule. The comparison is now what Jesus has done for you. And do you know what John chapter 13 is all about? Earlier on in that chapter, the disciples and Jesus come into a room where there's a feast prepared for them. And they all sit down around the table. And Jesus gets up from the table. And he takes off his outer cloak. He puts a towel around his waist. And he kneels down in front of each disciple one by one and washes their feet. After the dinner, he will take a cup and a piece of bread and tell the disciples